following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's your boy Perez. You're listening to the Better Live Than Dead podcast.
And with that, we welcome you to Better Live Than Dead, the podcast, powered by Better Live Than Dead and the Gear Radio Network. This is episode number 149.
149. What away, man, from 150.
We're close. We're very close. And I got a feeling we might be doing another podcast in a couple days here. I only say that because this is the NFL Week 5 cast. Normally, myself and joining me on the IndyCar Media Hotline, Mr. Perez at MRLG Perez on Twitter. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD on Twitter. Normally, as you know, we try to get these out Wednesday or Thursday, maybe even Tuesday, sometimes as early as Tuesday. But this week has been busy, and scheduling conflicts have been running amok between myself and Luis. So with that being said, we're here today on Saturday. I know Week 6 has already started. We're going to kind of give you a little bit of a spoiler alert about the Thursday Night Football game. But with that being said, Luis, we're here. Week 5 of the NFL season has come and gone. Week 6 of the NFL season has begun. How you doing?
You know what, man? I am not bad, man. Not bad at all. I feel bad that we had all the scheduling conflicts that we did this week, but hey, we're here. We're going to talk a little sports ball, and we'll be a good one. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I've been busy. Naturally, when someone takes time off of work, the literal crap hits the fan. So it's been a busy week. Been keeping myself going without issues. But yeah, I'm glad that we're able to get this done today and at least chat and keep it up. Because it's very hard to keep a podcast going weekly. But we're doing the damn thing 5 weeks into the NFL season.
I like it.
Now, looking back, first off, our first of three big things this week, we want to take a look at some of the big performances and shocking performances last Sunday in the National Football League. First off, New Orleans defeats Tampa Bay 31-24. Not very. I mean, Tampa continues to be and New Orleans continues to be good. But here's the reason that we're talking about it. Teddy Bridgewater kind of had his, I guess, comeback game. 26 for 34, 314 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, and 1 interception. If Teddy Bridgewater can continue to play that effectively until Drew Brees comes back, I think the Saints are going to be just fine.
Oh, yeah. If he continues to play like that, the Saints will be just, peachy keen, so to speak, I guess. You look good. It was nice to see him back. And frankly, if he continues to play like that, I mean, that could be your, quarterback going forward because, Brees isn't going to play forever, I think. But maybe he will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that when obviously when Drew Brees comes back, it's no surprise his job, but it's probably very good to know that if he comes back and struggles or is not as good as he, who knows how his thumb is going to heal. But when he comes back, if Teddy Bridgewater can get comfortable under center in the next couple of weeks, the Saints could be moving forward. And hey, this is the type of game that the Saints expected from Teddy Bridgewater when they signed him to that deal that made him, I believe, if not the highest paid, one of the highest paid backup quarterbacks in the National Football League. There's a reason why they value him so much, and he's paying it back. And it was a great game last Sunday. Now, talking about a game that didn't happen last Thursday, but a week from last Thursday. So we're looking, 9 days ago? The Seattle Seahawks and Los Angeles Rams had one hell of a football game. Seattle won 30-29, a last-second missed field goal by the normally automatic Greg Zuerlein. And the Seattle Seahawks edged out the Rams. Now, the thing about that one that's interesting is that Russell Wilson was 17 for 23, 268 passing yards, and 4 touchdowns. Now, Lewis, it seems like the Seattle Seahawks have kind of finally taken the reins off of Russell Wilson. It seems crazy to say that, but I mean, looking at how they've run their offense, they've really run the ball and then kind of use Russell Wilson when necessary. But Lewis, right now, through these 5 weeks. Russell Wilson on pace for 4,509 passing yards and 38 touchdowns, both a career high. Now, right now as well, Russell Wilson is on pace to throw no interceptions. That probably won't stay the same, but we can't project it because he hasn't thrown one yet. So he's projected to throw no interceptions, but we'll see what happens there. But one hell of a game for Seattle, Lewis, and they continue to look impressive over there in the NFC West.
Well, Seattle's been consistently good over the last several seasons. They should have, 2 Super Bowls rings, but yeah, they do look like they finally are letting Russell take the reins a little more and be a gunslinger. We all know he's got a great arm. He's got excellent accuracy. He looks like he's having fun out there. So if he continues to put up numbers like he is, it's going to be a great season and fun to watch. The upside for Seattle is, limitless if you let this guy do what he's doing right now. So it'll be interesting to see how far they can take it.
And looking at that NFC West, as I mentioned, you've got the Seattle Seahawks, you've got the Los Angeles Rams, and you also have the San Francisco 49ers, which we will let me see if we're going to talk about them here. We're not going to talk about them. They're not on the list, so we'll talk about them right now. The San Francisco 49ers have it appears Kyle Shanahan has done an incredible job tailoring that offense and helping tailor that defense specifically to how his players. I guess it goes back to my favorite saying. It's extending. It's making the players play to their strengths and hide their weaknesses. That's what I was trying to say. I apologize. And it looks like they're doing a great job of that over in San Francisco. I know that Jimmy Garoppolo hasn't been lights out this season so far, but he's done enough to help them win. And I mean, last week we saw, I have to look up the statistic here. Give me just a moment to go to NFL.com and I will check the scores. I know last week against the Cleveland Browns, the San Francisco 49ers ran absolutely all over the Cleveland Browns, but let's see. Scrolling down to the statistic. Here we go. 31-3, the 49ers 4-0 for the first time since 1990, before I was born. Looking at the statistics here. Here we go. So they had where are the team stats? There are the team stats. Thank you. Rushing yards. 275 rushing yards on Monday Night Football. Wow.
That's a couple rushing yards.
They ran for more yards than Cleveland had in total yards.
Well, first of all, 1990, before you were born, I was in 11th grade. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yikes.
Yes. I graduated in 91 at the old age of 17. But anyway, Cleveland, they are who we thought they were.
Well, here's the question. Before we get into trashing them, it's a simple question for me, Lewis. Do you think that Freddie Kitchens is bitten off more than he can chew?
I do. I absolutely do. But San Fran, they made Cleveland look ridiculous. They ran all over them. They couldn't stop them. I feel like I could have ran for 100 yards against that defense that night.
What position would you play? Fullback?
Yeah, you hand me the ball, though. But so I feel like you could have ran for 150 yards.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No problem. You're in better shape than I am. So
I did tell you. I did tell you before the podcast that I have put a little weight on because there's this weird thing that when you go on vacation to Hawaii and you just eat and drink whatever you want, you tend to gain a few pounds.
Yeah, it happens, man. You're on vacation. You're having a good time.
Yeah. Well, then there was to go off on a little tangent here. It also doesn't help that the last weekend I drank more than I can remember at my cousin's wedding. So, it was a
It's a good time.
Yeah, good time, but a lot of extra weight that I don't need.
Yeah, but you know what, man? Listen, your extra weight, my extra weight, completely two different things. You still look nice and trim. I still look fat. So
I appreciate it. Are you hitting on me?
No, not at all.
Thank you. I appreciate the kind words.
Unless you want me to.
Hey, look, I'm up for whatever on a podcast here. We do what we want.
But no, I mean, listen, I'm still not sold on the San Fran team. They look good. Not going to lie, they look pretty good. But I'm still. Maybe it's because I'm just not a San Fran fan, or maybe it's because I don't really pay too much attention to that division.
I don't think so, because you look at sorry to jump in there, Lewis, but you look at like what the New England Patriots have done. We know the New England Patriots are really good. Obviously, they're defending Super Bowl champions. We know that they're good, but you look at the quality of competition that they faced, and you're like, okay, yeah, you're undefeated, but you really haven't had to do much. So when you look at the 49ers schedule, I mean, they beat up on Tampa Bay 31-17. They blew out the Bengals 41-17. They beat the Steelers 24-20, had a bye week, and then beat the Browns 31-3. Now this week, we're going to get a very good look to see what kind of team this is when the 49ers head to the Los Angeles Coliseum to take on the Rams. That'll be an interesting game to see. But then, Lewis, do you want to see how difficult it gets for San Francisco? Week 7 in Washington. Week 8 home to Carolina. Week 9 at Arizona. Week 10 at Seattle. So you're potentially looking right now at games. Depending on how well or basing it off of how well San Francisco has played so far, you could have a football team that's, what are they, 4-0, 4-1, 5-1, 6-1, 7-1, 7-2, 8-2 heading into Week 12 facing the Green Bay Packers. And again, their schedule is not very difficult. I mean, they have, as we mentioned, Week 10, they've got Seattle, Arizona, Green Bay, Baltimore, New Orleans, Atlanta, Los Angeles Rams again, and then the Seattle Seahawks they close out the regular season against, which that might be for a playoff spot and or even winning the division. But again, it's it's a scenario where they have a relatively easy looking schedule, and I don't know how the strength of schedule works out, but I'll tell you what, they're taking advantage and making the most of what they've got going on there.
Yeah, they really are. I mean, that definitely is for the most part a pretty cupcake schedule, and it'll be fun to see what happens when they go up against some of these much more difficult teams. And that will, I'm going to use the same argument that people have used about the Dallas Cowboys. Once you face a really tough team, are you able to win? And we've seen, obviously, the Cowboys have not been able to win, which, pisses me off because, frankly, I feel like they should have won Sunday against Green Bay.
Well, we'll talk about that in a minute. No spoilers.
But, so they are they who they are perpetrating to be? I don't think so.
I mean, like I said, it's one of those situations where if they just beat the bad teams, they should be okay. But we'll see. We'll see how that one works out because obviously, guess what? We're not going anywhere. The podcast is going to be back. We're going to keep talking. We're going to keep moving forward. But, hey, looking at Carolina now.
I'll tell you real quick.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I had some friends talking a whole lot of junk online about how good Cleveland was, and then they were going to find out against San Fran. And those said friends have been really quiet ever since that game.
It happens. I mean, they can still roll out and be perfectly fine, but then again, they could continue to just roll downhill. And if they do, I don't know they probably need a better head coach because Freddie Kitchens, like we said, it really looks like Freddie Kitchens might be in over his head just a little, but we'll see how the rest of the season plays out. It's still relatively early. I want to talk, though, about speaking of relatively early, the most valuable player in the National Football League. He currently plays for the Carolina Panthers, who defeated the Jacksonville Gardner Minshews 34-27 last week. But Lewis, this is wild. Not only what he did last week, but what he's been doing and where it's going from here. Christian McCaffrey last week, 19 carries, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, as well as 6 catches for 61 yards and a touchdown. Currently, Christian McCaffrey is on pace to set the NFL record for most all-purpose yards. But right now he is on pace for 1,878 rushing yards, 19 rushing touchdowns, 99 catches, 893 receiving yards, and 3 touchdowns. Try to tell me, Lewis, why Christian McCaffrey is not the MVP, and I will tell you why I believe you're incorrect.
You want to tell me why you believe I'm incorrect if I tell you why he's not the MVP?
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I mean, listen. What did he do last week? He had 37 yards. Wait, am I looking at the wrong schedule?
You're looking at the wrong schedule.
I'm looking at the wrong stats.
Lewis, I just said it. I just told you, man, you got to open up your ears, buddy. You're killing me.
Yeah,
176. Let's try this again. 19 carries, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground, 6 catches, 61 yards, and 1 touchdown in the air.
Oh, yeah, no, that's pretty good. That's not bad. I mean, against Houston, okay, so against Houston, he only had 93 yards. That's what I was looking at. That's my bad.
Only. Lewis, again, he's on pace. He's on pace for almost 3,000 all-purpose yards.
Yeah, no, he is. So I was looking at week 2. Week 2, he had 37 yards. So that's what I was looking at.
But here's the thing. The thing for me, that the reason why I mentioned that the MVP talk, not only because everybody else is talking about it, but he has stepped up his game since Cam Newton's been injured and been out, and he's been that much better and kind of put the team on his back even more than he already has. Whereas if you took him off of the Carolina Panthers, they would not be very good.
Oh, no, that's absolutely true. I will 100% agree with you there. 19 attempts, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns, averaging 9.3. He had a long one of 84. You're correct. That's impressive numbers. He's got a good stat line going this year. You know, against Arizona, he ran for 153. Against the Rams, he ran for 128. Is he the MVP of the actual whole football league? I don't know about that, man. Like,
I'm not sure who else could be it right now.
Let me do some research, and I'll tell you next show.
I mean, maybe Pat Mahomes, but he's kind of regressed a little, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes.
Yes,
I want to actually, you know what? This is a good transition.
Future Hall of Famer, though.
Future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. A potential MVP in the National Football League. Houston, the Texans, they defeat Atlanta 53-32. Lewis, the reason why this is important, the 53-32 score, according to NFL Scoregami, a great follow on Twitter, it is the 1,051st unique final score in NFL history. Now, Deshaun Watson, excuse me, I believe he was hit maybe once that game. They kept the pressure off, man. It's crazy to think that if you keep the pressure off Deshaun Watson, he can be an incredible quarterback. 28 for 33, 426 passing yards, 5 touchdowns, no interceptions. Now, Lewis, he is on pace for 4,365 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. There's a potential right there. You're looking, I'm thinking right now, if I were to handicap it, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey, Deshaun Watson, and future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes. The final 3 as of week 5 for the, like, we're doing a Heisman ranking of the NFL MVP. It would be those 3 right now, which, like I said, we'll talk about Pat Mahomes in a few minutes. But Deshaun Watson, again, incredible for Houston. They have to protect him. They have to keep him healthy, and then they should be fine.
No, absolutely. And we talked about that before, about how, you know, they've never been able to protect the quarterback really well. And we were hoping that they'd be able to do that this year for this guy, just to see how good he could actually be, because he's had, He's had some injuries that has kind of not let us see where he is. And if you look at some of his games this year, he's not as consistent as you want your quarterback to be. I mean, against Atlanta, you just read off the stats. I mean, he pulled out 426 yards with 5 TDs. That's awesome. 28 for 33 is awesome. But then you go to, like, where he lost against Carolina, he was 21 for 33, and he only threw 460 yards. That's not a lot. Then you go back against L.A., he's got 350 yards. Look at Jacksonville, 159. So can he be more consistent? If he can get on a roll and be more consistent, then yeah, absolutely he could be in the MVP running right now. But he needs to find his pace and be more consistent in what he's doing.
Now, one thing I want to ask you before we talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. I know you mentioned the Green Bay Packers defeating the Dallas Cowboys 34-24. Green Bay is now 4-1. Lewis, real quick, you can answer yes or no, or you can give me some insight if you want to. Since you have firsthand knowledge now, seeing the Packers beat the I almost said Pittsburgh Steelers, but beating the Dallas Cowboys. Is this the best Packers team we've seen since the last Super Bowl that they won?
No, I don't believe so. I don't think so. And I'm going to say that they're 4-1. They look good, but I don't know. They who have they beat? They beat the Vikings. That was a good win. The Vikings are maybe not as good as I thought they were at the beginning of the season. They beat the Broncos. I feel like
well, I mean, with Minnesota, we've learned they'll go as far as Kirk Cousins will take them, and that's not very far.
Right. They put up an absolute goose egg. Not a goose egg. They scored 27 points, but they got their butts handed to them against the Eagles. And sure, they put up 34 points against the Cowboys, who have a pretty stellar defense, and they beat them by 10 points. However, in the fourth quarter, when the Cowboys finally woke up, the Cowboys put up 21 points in that fourth quarter. If the Cowboys, once again, and I'm just speculating, if the Cowboys had played the way they did in the fourth quarter that whole game, they would have beat Green Bay. Green Bay's good. I can see Rodgers is buying into this young coach's game plans and his ideas. They're good, but I don't know if they're Super Bowl good.
Well, and just to back up your thought, because I hadn't looked at these stats until just a second ago. Right now, the Packers offense ranks 25th in the league with 337.2 yards per game. In terms of total points per game, let's see where they rank. They rank 13th with 23.8 points per game offensively. Defensively, they're allowing 376.8 yards per game, which is 22nd in the National Football League. But in terms of points allowed per game, they are only allowing 8th best, 18.6. So it seems like to me, the story of the Green Bay Packers so far, bend but don't break. Offensively, they're efficient. They may not get a lot of yards per game, but they turn the yards into points. And then defensively, they allow a ton of yards, but they don't allow a lot of points. And at the end of the day,
right,
that's the name of the game. I mean, obviously, outscoring your opponents, don't let your opponents score more than you score. But it seems pretty. It sounds pretty basic, but that's the truth. Don't let you could allow a team to go. You could allow 500 yards a game defensively, but if they're only scoring 14 points a game against you, you're fine.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you look at Rodgers' game against the Cowboys, he didn't have a stellar game. He was 22 for 34. His completion percentage was 64.7. He didn't throw for a touchdown. So he against the Cowboys was not particularly good. It was the rest of the team that really picked that team up.
Yeah, and he's only on pace right now for 4,100 yards, 4,182 yards, 19 touches and 3 interceptions. So again, he's having it would be one of his more quieter seasons. Granted, I mean and this is actually something I didn't know either because again, I only shows how deep I look in the statistics here. I love the stats, by the way. You all know that. Week 1, 203 passing yards. Week 2, 209 passing yards. Week 3, 235 passing yards. Week 4, 422 passing yards. Week 5, 238 passing yards. He's only thrown for more than 238 passing yards once in 5 games. So maybe he picks it up the second half, but interesting to see Aaron Rodgers have be efficient, but also not have a lot of passing yards. That's weird.
Oh, yeah. If it wasn't for, like I said, if Dallas had played the way they did in the fourth quarter, they would have won that game. And, frankly, Dallas couldn't stop Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones ran all over Dallas. He had 107 yards and 4 touchdowns. And you just don't see Dallas's defense give up points like that. But they had no answer for him. So, he hasn't played like that the rest of the season. The week before, he only had 21 rushing yards. The week before that, he had 19. So you had a running back have an incredible game in a way that he hasn't been having all year. So there was a couple of factors that just that game made me mad. I'm not going to lie.
I can understand that. I can understand why that would make you mad for sure. I mean, I know we dog on you a lot about being a Cowboys fan and how you definitely let it affect your judgment when it comes to picking games and all that. But I can understand because it's one of those situations where, again, you watch. It's like watching that Bills game against the Patriots. You say to yourself, "This team can win," but they can't get through it. They can't break the dam. And I understand that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Now I want to move over to future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes, who's kind of struggling lately. Kansas City falls to Indianapolis 19-13. Patrick Mahomes, 222 Patrick Mahomes, 22 of 39, 321 passing yards, only 1 touchdown pass thrown. He's still on pace for 5,859 passing yards, 35 touchdowns, and no interceptions. He's not thrown an interception at the season. But, Lewis, this is what I'm worried about with Patrick Mahomes. The last few weeks, we've seen him re-aggravate that ankle injury that he had week 1 against Jacksonville. I believe it was week 1 against Jacksonville. And the last 2 games, he's not been great. He threw 10 touchdowns in the first 3 games. The last 2 games, he's only thrown 1 combined. And the other thing, too, especially the Indianapolis game, Patrick Mahomes was sacked 4 times. Before the game, he'd only been sacked 3 times in 4 games. He'd been sacked 4 times in that game itself. And it doesn't get much easier for Kansas City. They take on Houston. Granted, they take on Houston at home, which is good for them. But again, Kansas City's if Patrick Mahomes can get his consistency back, because he's consistently throwing for over 300 yards a game, but it seems like when he's throwing for 375 or 380, even 400, that it's hard to beat Kansas City, whereas they almost lost to Detroit, and then obviously they lost to Indianapolis, as we mentioned. But future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes kind of having a little bit of a slump, I guess, if you can call it that. But we'll see how that ankle injury is in week 6, and we'll report back and talk a little more about it. But I do want to, Lewis, I want to move over to some other news. 2 things, 2 big stories out of the week. First off, Washington fires head coach Jay Gruden last Monday morning at 5 a.m. Washington fell to 0-5 after a 33-7 loss to New England. Gruden was 35-49-1 in 5 seasons, 5+ seasons. Now, Lewis, question for you. Dirty Pool with the early wake-up call. Have him come in at 5 a.m. and fire him at 5 a.m. Not wait till the daytime, not do it after the game, anything like that. Waiting and hitting him at 5 a.m. to let him know, hey, you're fired. We're not bringing you back. See you later.
Yeah, man, that's messed up. I mean, granted, the day before, after they lost, he was like, do you think they're going to be fired? Well, we'll see if my key works in the morning. Like he kind of made a joke about it. But 5 o'clock in the morning, that's cold-blooded.
I mean, that's almost as bad as like calling you into work, having you work all day, and then all of a sudden being like, "Oh yeah, by the way, you're fired."
You know what? I would prefer that though, because at least I get that on my paycheck. You know what I'm saying?
That's true. That's true.
So, but no, that's messed up. Like, I would be more pissed if you did that to me at 5 o'clock in the morning, especially if you make me get up and come in to the office. Because obviously, you know, it's against the law to fire someone over the phone, although I've been fired over the phone.
I feel like you have all those horror stories.
I do. But yeah, that's cold-blooded, man. That is, but I mean, if you look at the Redskins organization, the last several years, it's not like they've been a great organization. So, am I surprised they did that? No, not really. Is it messed up that they did that? Absolutely.
I mean, nothing will change in Washington until the two guys up top change. Until the owner it's Dan Snyder. Once Dan Snyder's gone, they'll be fine. I have to double check. I can never remember their power structure. I just know it's really bad.
It is bad.
Let's see here. Oh yeah, Daniel Snyder and Bruce Allen, the president, Bruce Allen, the owner, Daniel Snyder. Until they're gone, I mean, Washington is probably going to be a tire fire. They have been for decades now. And that one good year with Robert Griffin, but then they decided to play him and he blew out his knee. And the rest, as they say, is history, unfortunately, for Robert Griffin III. But, oh, man.
Yeah, they did him wrong. They did him wrong.
They did him wrong. They did him raw and wrong. Let's put it that way. Let's just be real with it. I'm looking at the list of seasons here.
Story.
I can't find it. Sometimes Wikipedia is great. Other times you're like, dude, what the hell? I can't find anything on here. Seasons. There we go. Okay, so looking at the list of seasons here, let's look at Washington's list here. 7-9, and this is not including this year where they are 0-5. 7-9, 7-9, 8-7, 9-7 lost in the playoffs to Green Bay. 4-12, 3-13, 10-6. Robert Griffin's season where they lost to Seattle. 5-11, 6-10, 4-12, 8-8, 9-7 lost to Seattle in the playoffs. So let's put it this way: since 2000. They've won more than 8 games 1, 2, 3, 4 times in 18 years.
That's terrible.
That's really bad.
That is terrible.
And they've had a laundry list of bad coaches. Marty Schottenheimer, who wasn't bad across the board, but his one year in Washington ended up being a 8-8 season where they finished second in the NFC East. But Steve Spurrier, Joe Gibbs came back, Jim Zorn was there, Mike Shanahan was there, Jay Gruden was there. I mean, granted, the last four coaches that Washington's had, 3 of them have made the playoffs at least once in their tenure. Jim Zorn being the lone standout, he went 8-8 and 4-12. But I don't know what they're doing in Washington, man. I don't know what the hell's going on there.
They don't know what they're doing in Washington.
I mean, for you, it's good because it's they're the I guess you could call them a rival of the Cowboys, but still, it's
they're in the same division.
Yeah, they're
I don't know if I call them a rival.
Anybody in their division's a rival. Come on, even when Toronto is bad, we still call the Red Sox fans still call the Blue Jays the rival, or Baltimore is a rival. I mean, even though they're still terrible.
I know.
Killing me,
anyway.
man.
I don't know. See, like, when I think rivals, like, obviously they're in the same division, so they are our rivals. But when I think rivals, I think of other teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like Dallas and Pittsburgh hate each other. They're rivals. They don't play often, but when they do, it's an incredible game to watch. It's electric. So I consider rivals like that.
That's
like
fair.
Dallas and San Fran. Those are huge rivals. Obviously, in the division,
me and Twizzlers
everyone's
are
a
huge
rival.
rivals. I can't stop. I can't quit them.
Who you and Twizzlers?
Me and Twizzlers, yeah.
Twizzlers are awesome.
They are. They give me real bad heartburn, though.
Oh, do they? That's weird.
Yeah, it's
That's
all
like
good.
me and
Though.
Chocolate, man. Me and Chocolate, we're rivals because I have a hard time.
Me and iced coffee. Love iced coffee. Come on now.
Fortunately, Chocolate does not give me heartburn, though, because that would super suck.
That would be pretty rough, yeah. Hey, I want to move on now to some other news. Two big stories. You know what? I apologize because I totally forgot. That's how bad Washington is that I forgot that we were talking about other news. So I'm going to fix that. I'm not going to take it out of the podcast because my embarrassments only make me better. Tom Brady, Lewis, Tom Brady. He moves into third all-time with 71,923 passing yards during his Week 5 performance. Was 18 yards away from second all-time Peyton Manning at 71,940. Now, spoiler alert, as we mentioned, we're doing this a few days after Week 6 started. We're doing it on Saturday afternoon. Tom Brady played Thursday night against the New York Giants. He went 31 of 41 for 334 yards and an interception, which pushed him past Peyton Manning. Tom Brady now second all-time in NFL history with 72,257 passing yards. If you wanted to know, first overall, Drew Brees with 74,845 passing yards. Also, Tom Brady is 13 touchdown passes away from passing Peyton Manning all-time for first overall, all-time in NFL history. Peyton Manning has 539 touchdowns all-time. We know Tom Brady is the greatest of all time, but at this point, is there anything that he can't do?
Make good commercials.
That's
His
fair.
commercials are pretty terrible.
That's fair.
Like that one commercial with the mattress where he goes in, they're like, "Here's your mattress, sir," and he just stares at the mattress lovingly. I don't need to see that. That's gross. Why are you looking at the mattress that way? Other than that, yeah, I mean, I've run out of things to say about the guy. He's I was a Tom Brady hater for a while, and then a few seasons ago, I was like, you know what? Like, why am I hating this dude? He's an incredible quarterback.
I mean, I was like that with a lot of sports, yeah, with a lot of sports where I was like, hey, I don't like this guy. Why don't I like this guy? And then I'm like, you know what? I'm over this, man. Like I don't like Tom Brady, but I appreciate Tom Brady because I don't think we're ever going to see a quarterback as dominant as him ever again.
No, that's exactly what I was going to say. I don't have to like him, but I appreciate him. And while he's here doing what he's doing, you might as well as appreciate it. And here's what I like about what Tom Brady does. Tom Brady wants to win so bad that unlike other players, he will take less money to pay other players more so more good players can come play for the Patriots. And that's how it should be done.
Isn't that crazy?
It is. He does it the way it should be done.
What a novel concept that is.
Right. He's not terribly athletic. Like, if you get him out of the pocket, forget about it. He's not going to throw a block, but he's 42 years old.
He tries to throw blocks, and it's always hilarious when he does because he runs like a dump truck.
He does run like a dump truck, and those blocks are so half-hearted that it's hilarious. But,
Hey, by the way, Lewis, you watch your damn mouth about Tom Brady, okay? Did you catch the game on Thursday night, bro? 7 rushes for 6 yards. That's a .9 average. He also had 2 rushing touchdowns. His long run of the day, 2 yards.
Yeah, well, like I said, he's not particularly athletic when you get him outside the pocket. But he's always had a great arm. He's always been super, super accurate, super consistent. And he plays the quarterback position the way a quarterback should play that position. I mean, don't get me wrong. I like the quarterbacks that can roll out the pocket and throw it 50 yards down the field on the run. That's fun to watch. But you know what else is really fun to watch? A dude like Tom Brady who's so clinical that he can just pick apart defenses and put a football in on a spot where most quarterbacks would not even dare to throw the ball. That's
Absolutely.
fun to watch also. And I'm not going to lie to you. As much as I hate against the Patriots, I love Bill Belichick. He's so funny to me because he'll do those press conferences where he won't give you anything. He won't give anything away, give you the same answer 20 times. But then you see him at an award show, and he's wearing all 6 of his Super Bowl rings. That's hilarious.
Hey, one thing I want to mention to you about Tom Brady, we're looking at stats here. I'm looking at his career stats. In 275 games played, he has 594 rushing attempts for 1,006 yards, a 1.7 yards per carry average, 22 touchdowns. Not bad. Not bad for the future Hall of Famer there.
Yeah, if he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer, I don't know who is.
I think you don't have to worry too much about that, but I do want to mention here with the playoff picture before we wrap this podcast up and look over at our Week 6 matchups. In the AFC, Kansas City, New England, Houston, Baltimore, Buffalo, and Oakland. There's your 1 through 6, and NFC 1 through 6. San Francisco, New Orleans, Green Bay, Philadelphia, Seattle, and Detroit. Things are still very close in both races. Both the AFC and the NFC. But with that being said, some teams are kind of taking a bit of a step forward. So looking ahead to Week 6 before we wrap things up here on the Better Live Than Dead podcast, we have Seattle at 4-1 versus Cleveland at 2-3, Houston at 3-2 versus Kansas City at 4-1, San Francisco 4-0 against the Rams at 3-2, Detroit 2-1-1 against Green Bay 4-1, and then Lewis, the biggest matchup of the game of the season potentially, or biggest matchup of the week, biggest matchup of the season potentially, the 0-5 Washington football team versus the 0-4 Miami Dolphins and what might be named the Tua Bowl.
You know what I really want to see happen in that game?
A tie? Scoreless tie?
I want to see a tie. I want to see a tie. So we can still have a team with no wins. It'd be so good.
I strongly think that, if Miami doesn't win that game, there's a potential they could go winless.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I believe Miami wants to go winless. So, yeah, no, absolutely. Redskins will probably get their first win of the season. And if they don't, look for the Redskins to go winless.
We'll see what happens there for sure. We'll keep an eye on that. But hey, is there anything else you want to add on the podcast this week before we wrap this bad boy up?
When you were talking about future Hall of Famer Patrick Mahomes, I was going to say that if you look at what they did in that game with his ankle issues possible, he got sacked 4 times. So he was not sacked the other games. So if you could get to him, it might throw his game off. So I look for other teams to possibly try to replicate that success. Absolutely.
That's something that was talked about this week. Hey, can they take the game plan of Indianapolis and match it and make it happen? But really, honestly, it's I think you could blitz the hell out of Mahomes, but it's one of those things where it's really it depends on how he's doing. If he's healthy and he can scramble around and make those crazy passes and all that stuff, they'll be fine. But once he loses his mobility and then he's having trouble where he can't get enough power in the ball, as we've seen a couple times, that could certainly affect things. And I certainly think that if you think he's hurt, obviously put more pressure on him. But then again, that may hurt you because if you put pressure on him and you give him more time to scramble out and get comfortable, you could hurt yourself in the long run. So we'll see what happens against a very tough Houston defense, and we'll talk more about it next week.
All right, sounds good.
So one thing we didn't mention when we started the podcast, you hear this every single time, but we'll run through it again. You can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, iHeartRadio, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you can listen to a podcast, you get this podcast. If not, let us know. We'll make it happen. I am Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD, and as always, joining me, well, not as always, but most of the time, joining me on the IndyCard Media Hotline, Mr. Perez at MRLG Perez. And Lewis, like we always tell him, we are better live than dead.
You're not.
We will catch you sometime very soon.
Doses.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.
Welcome, everyone. This is Sleazy.
This is the Fat Man.
And the world-famous R-rated podcast is now on the Gear Network. The Wrestling Show with Sleazy and the Fat Man is classless and raunchy commentary on the wrestling business today. Our multiple hosts, including Sleazy the Fat Man, Chip Willett, and NEW owner Travis Kenning, give a differing take on news, rumors, reviews, and previews of the entirety of the worldwide pro wrestling market.
We do what we want, we say what we want, and we don't give a at all. That's just the way we go.
Check us out on the Gear Network.